A woman walked into a hotel lobby and was told she didn't belong. What the people who said those words didn't know was that she owned the place. Before I tell you this story, I need you to do something for me. I need you to comment below where you're watching from, your city, your country. Because what I'm about to share with you, it could have happened anywhere. It could have happened to anyone. And maybe, just maybe, it's happened to you. Let me take you to the beginning. It was a Tuesday afternoon in downtown Portland when Maya Chen walked through the glass doors of the Sterling Crown Hotel. She came alone. No assistant trailing behind her. No designer handbag swinging from her shoulder. No logo-covered luggage announcing her arrival. Just a black t-shirt, fitted jeans, and white sneakers that barely whispered against the marble floor. She looked normal. Every day. Like someone who might work at a coffee shop or teach at a community college. Like someone who definitely didn't belong in a five-star hotel with crystal chandeliers and gold-trimmed counters. At least that's what Richard Morrison thought when he saw her approaching his desk. Richard was 48 years old. He'd been managing the Sterling Crown for 6 years, and in his mind, he knew exactly what a penthouse guest looked like. They wore watches that cost more than cars. They carried themselves with a certain energy. They looked the part. Maya Chen, in her plain clothes and calm expression, did not look the part. Standing beside Richard were his two clerks. Jessica Porter, 30 years old, with her hair pulled back so tight it seemed to stretch her smile into something artificial, and Daniel Kim, 27, arms already crossed, eyes already judging. None of them smiled at Maya. None of them said hello. They just looked up and down, scanning, calculating, deciding. Maya stopped at the counter. Her voice was steady, warm even. "Hi, I have a reservation, penthouse suite. The name is Chen." Richard squinted at her like he'd misheard, like the words didn't match the person saying them. "That's a very high-tier room," he said slowly. "Are you sure you booked the right hotel?" Let me pause here for a second, because if you've ever been looked at like you don't belong somewhere, you know that feeling. That sharp, cold moment when someone decides, without knowing you, that you're a mistake, that you're in the wrong place, that you need to leave. Maya had felt that feeling before, many times, but not today, not anymore. She slid her ID and a black credit card across the counter. Calm, no anger, no desperation. Just a woman checking into her reservation. Richard picked up the card between two fingers, like it might be contaminated. "Strange," he muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Like, this looks suspicious." And that's when Jessica pressed the button, the intercom button, and her voice echoed across the entire lobby, cold and clinical. "Security, we may have an unauthorized guest trying to access one of our premium suites. Possibly fraudulent." The lobby went still. Guests turned, phones came out, and Maya Chen, standing there in her jeans and t-shirt, didn't raise her voice. She didn't panic. She just said quietly, "I'm not here for trouble. I'm here for my room." Daniel scoffed from behind the desk. "You know, people try this all the time. Fancy cards they found somewhere. Fake names, usually hoping we won't check." Across the room, two guests had already started recording. One of them, a travel blogger named Emma Park, whispered to her friend Marcus, "I'm filming this. People need to see this." Marcus started a live stream. "We're at the Sterling Crown in Portland," he said into his phone. "And we're watching something really ugly happen in real time." There was someone else in that lobby who saw what was happening. Her name was Sophia Martinez, 24 years old, the youngest concierge at the Sterling Crown. And unlike Richard, Jessica, and Daniel, Sophia recognized the name on that reservation. She'd seen it that morning when she logged into the system. Chen Maya. Penthouse suite. VIP override, executive clearance, owner-level access. Sophia's eyes met Maya's across the lobby, and in that moment, something passed between them. A flicker of recognition, a silent understanding. Sophia took a small step forward, her mouth opening to speak, but Richard's glare cut her off, sharp, immediate, a warning without words. "She doesn't belong here," Richard said, his voice louder now, performing for the guests, asserting his authority. Maya pulled out her phone. She tapped the screen once, twice. On the other end, 3 blocks away in a glass office tower, her executive assistant picked up immediately. "It's happening," Maya said quietly. Her assistant's voice was steady, prepared. "The system's ready." Back at the desk, Richard was still holding Maya's card, turning it over in his hands like he was searching for proof of a crime. "You know," he said, addressing the lobby now, not just Maya, "we've seen this scam before. People come in, claim to have bookings, flash a high-limit card, and disappear the second we call the bank." He handed the card to Daniel. "Lock it up." Daniel took it eagerly. He walked to a small cabinet behind the desk and opened a brushed steel safe. With exaggerated care, he placed Maya's card inside. The door slammed shut with a metallic finality that seemed to announce, "You're done here." "You're finished," Daniel said, smiling. Actually smiling. Emma, still filming, gasped. "They just took her card. That's theft." Marcus, his live stream now climbing past 200 viewers, stepped closer. "That's not policy. That's not legal." And Maya, standing perfectly still, said 5 words that should have been a warning. "You're going to regret this." Let me tell you something about Maya Chen that Richard Morrison didn't know. When she was 24 years old, Maya walked into a boutique hotel in Denver after a red-eye flight. She'd been in meetings all day. She was exhausted, dressed in sweatpants and an old hoodie, carrying nothing but a backpack. She had a confirmed reservation. The man at the desk looked her up and down and said, "You don't look like someone who'd stay here." He told her the system was down, that she should come back later when the manager was around, that maybe she'd made a mistake. Maya slept in her car that night, in a parking lot, wrapped in a jacket, humiliated. The next morning, she sat in a coffee shop and started writing. Not an angry letter, not a complaint, a business plan. A vision for what a hotel could be if it was built on respect instead of assumptions. 10 years later, that plan had become the Sterling Crown Hotel Group. 15 properties across the country, thousands of employees, millions of guests. And now, standing in a lobby she owned, wearing clothes that looked just like the ones from that night in Denver, the same words were being said to her again. "You don't belong here." But this time, Maya wasn't going to sleep in her car. Richard leaned over the counter, his voice dripping with false concern. "Your reservation's been canceled. We don't tolerate deception. You're holding up real guests." Maya didn't flinch. She gestured toward the growing crowd of phones. "You mean the ones watching this right now?" Other guests had stopped what they were doing. Some were staring, some were recording. Some looked deeply uncomfortable, like they wanted to intervene but didn't know how. Sophia, the young concierge, finally spoke up. Her voice shook, but it was clear. "She's right. I saw her name in the system this morning. Her reservation is valid." Richard turned to her, his face flushing red. "One more word," he hissed, "and you're gone too." Maya lifted her phone again. "Log this moment," she said to her assistant. "Lock in the video timestamps." "Logged," came the response. "System's ready." Marcus, still live streaming, pointed at the safe where Daniel had locked away Maya's card. "It says Chen VIP on the card. It's real. She's real." Richard scoffed. "Anyone can make a fake card." "People like her," he started to say. "Finish that sentence," Maya interrupted. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the lobby like a blade. "Go ahead." "Finish it." He didn't. The words died in his throat as he noticed how many eyes were on him. How many phones were pointed his direction? Maya stepped forward, every word measured, every syllable deliberate. You've just made the worst mistake of your professional life. Richard smiled, the smile of someone who still thinks he's in control. You think so? Maya's eyes didn't waver. I know so. And that's when the tension in that lobby became something physical, something you could feel pressing down on everyone. Because nobody there, not Richard, not Jessica, not Daniel, had any idea who they were really talking to. But they were about to find out. Get out of my lobby. Richard's voice cracked across the marble floor like a gunshot. Desperate now, losing control and trying to grab it back through volume. She's trespassing. She's lying. He turned to the intercom and slammed his hand down on the button. Daniel's voice boomed through every speaker in the building. To all staff, unauthorized individual in the lobby, do not engage. Repeat, do not engage with this guest. Fraud alert. The silence that followed was heavier than stone. Emma shouted from across the room, her voice trembling with anger. She's not a fraud. We're recording everything. Marcus's livestream had jumped past 3,000 viewers. The comments were rolling in like a flood. That's theft. This is insane. How is this happening? And then Jessica made the worst decision of her career. She came out from behind the desk, walked straight up to Maya, and grabbed her arm. Let's go. You're embarrassing yourself. The lobby exploded with gasps, but before Jessica could pull Maya another step, Sophia stepped between them. Physically, the youngest person on staff, barely older than a college graduate, putting her body on the line. Don't touch her again, Sophia said. Loud, clear, unshakable. Jessica froze. You'll be fired? Then fire me, Sophia shot back. But you're not putting your hands on her. Richard surged forward, red-faced, his voice rising. Do you even know who she is? She's a fraud. Look at her. He gestured at Maya's clothes like they were evidence. People who stay in penthouse suites don't look like that. Maya's voice was quiet, calm, but every word landed like a hammer. You keep saying that word. Fraud. Like it'll make your mistake disappear. She took one step forward. The space between them closed. It won't. Richard was spiraling now. Get security, he barked at Daniel. Call them now. But Daniel hesitated, because something had shifted in the room. The guests weren't just watching anymore, they were choosing sides. Emma panned her phone across the lobby, capturing every face, every reaction. They just grabbed her. This is being posted everywhere. A woman in the crowd, older with silver hair and a floral scarf, moved forward. She positioned herself between Maya and Jessica. You're not laying a hand on her again. Another guest joined, then another. Within seconds, a semicircle had formed around Maya. A human barrier. Protection without being asked. Richard stood behind his desk, looking suddenly much smaller. You're all being manipulated, he shouted. She's playing you. And then Daniel, still holding the intercom mic, whispered something. It was barely audible, but the speakers caught it. And the entire lobby heard, She owns the place, doesn't she? The question hung in the air like smoke. Emma slowly turned her camera toward Maya's face. Do you? She asked, breathless. Sophia stepped forward, her voice steady now. She does. The room erupted in gasps, whispers, confusion, realization. Wait, someone said. This is her hotel? Jessica turned to Richard in horror. You said she was lying. Marcus looked into his camera, his voice filled with disbelief. This is the moment everything changed. Maya stepped forward, past Sophia, past the protective semicircle of guests, right up to the front desk where Richard stood, frozen. You wanted me out, she said evenly. You framed me. You called me a thief. You humiliated me in my own lobby. Richard's mouth opened. No words came out. Maya raised her phone. Her assistant's voice came through, clear as glass. Maya, we're ready. Do you want me to proceed? Maya's eyes never left Richard's face. Yes, right now. A beat of silence. Terminate Richard Morrison. Terminate Jessica Porter. Terminate Daniel Kim. Immediate removal from the Sterling system. Freeze their access credentials. Log today's incident for legal audit. There was a pause. Then, confirmed. Processing now. Richard's access badge buzzed red. Jessica's did the same. So did Daniel's. They were locked out, in real time. In front of everyone. No second chances, no warnings. Just consequence. Immediate, complete. Irreversible. And in the eyes of every guest in that lobby, a single truth became undeniable. This woman hadn't just defended herself. She had dismantled an entire system in 9 minutes flat. Richard stared at his badge like it had betrayed him. Daniel's face drained of all color. Jessica backed up until she hit the wall, her hands trembling. The guests, the witnesses, stood perfectly still. Sophia, no longer the silent concierge, spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. They've been removed. They don't speak for Sterling anymore. Richard erupted. This is illegal. You can't just... This isn't how hotels operate. He turned to Jessica, desperate. Call corporate. Get someone on the line. Now. Jessica fumbled with her phone. Her voice cracked. I'm locked out. Everything's gone. Daniel tried to approach the safe, tried to retrieve Maya's card, but Sophia raised her hand. Stop. You're no longer authorized to handle guest property. Step back. And then Richard, cornered, humiliated, lashed out one final time. Do you really think this circus makes you a leader? You tricked your way in. You humiliated us in public. You'll be sued for this. But his voice cracked. He was no longer in control. And everyone could hear it. Maya tilted her head slightly. You think leadership is about hiding things? Manipulating perception? She gestured to the crowd. Leadership is when people who've been ignored for too long finally speak up, and they're heard. And right on cue, the guests began to speak. A woman stepped forward. You never took my complaint seriously last spring. I emailed about an incident at check-in. No one followed up. You were the one who dismissed it. Another voice. I was charged twice for a room and got no response until I threatened legal action. A man from the back. I asked for an accessible room and was told none were available. Then I watched someone else check in and get one immediately. One by one, the voices grew. Past slights, ignored complaints, denied accountability. It all came pouring out. Sophia stepped forward, emboldened now. I logged 3 complaints in the last 2 months about biased behavior at the front desk. They were dismissed every time. Richard signed off on all of them. Jessica's voice was a whisper now. Richard, what is this? They're turning on us. They're just angry, Richard stammered. This will blow over. But it didn't blow over. It grew. Emma held up her phone, showing her post going viral. Hundreds of comments, dozens of shares, screenshots of Daniel's intercom announcement, the clip of Jessica grabbing Maya's arm, Richard yelling about people like her. It's out there now, Emma said. Everyone's seeing it. Richard lunged toward the counter. Delete that. That's private property. 2 guests stepped in his path. One of them, a quiet man with glasses, simply said, No, you don't get to silence this. And then Richard broke. His shoulders slumped. His voice went ragged. Why didn't you say who you were? You set us up. Maya blinked. No, I gave you every opportunity to treat me like any other guest. That was the test. And you failed it, publicly. Maya's assistant's voice returned over the phone, now on speaker. The board's authorized full incident response. We're ready for your next steps. Maya looked around the lobby. Every phone still raised, every guest bearing witness. Patch her through. Another voice came through, calm and professional. Richard Morrison, Jessica Porter, Daniel Kim. Effective immediately, your employment with Sterling Crown Hotel Group is terminated. Your access has been revoked. Legal documentation is being prepared. All guests, please be advised, new leadership will be addressing your concerns momentarily. The words hit like thunder. Daniel tried one last protest. This is insane. We built this place. Maya cut him off. You built nothing. You guarded the door and turned away the very people we claim to serve. She turned to Sophia. Please unlock the safe. Retrieve my card. Sophia moved quickly, entering a new code, her own, and opened the safe. Maya's black card lay inside, untouched. Sophia handed it back, her eyes glassy with emotion. And then the guests began to clap. Not loud, not chaotic, but purposeful. Like they were acknowledging something that was long overdue. Maya looked out over them. This wasn't just about me. This was about every guest who was told their presence was a problem. Every complaint that disappeared. Every policy used to humiliate instead of serve. That ends today. She turned back to her phone. Proceed with full lobby reform. Elevate Sophia Martinez. She'll be leading this location. Yes, ma'am, came the response. And with that, Maya Chen stepped forward. No longer anonymous, no longer mistaken. She had just taken her hotel back, one decision at a time. Maya stood at the center of that marble lobby, silent and composed, while the three people she had just fired stood behind the desk, stripped of power, reputation shattered. Around them, the guests remained, unwilling to look away. Maya adjusted the hem of her t-shirt and spoke, not for the cameras, but with the clear, steady tone of someone who had earned every word. My name is Maya Chen. I am the founder and CEO of Sterling Crown Hotel Group. And as of this moment, I am reclaiming this hotel. Not just from the people who misused their roles, but from every excuse they ever hid behind. The words hit like a shockwave. Phones lowered, eyes widened. She owns it, someone whispered. The whole company. Marcus's live stream exploded with comments. CEO, this just flipped everything. Richard stumbled forward. Wait, you're the CEO. You should have... There's protocol. You ambushed us. No, Maya replied. I walked in like every other guest. Quiet, alone, respectful. The only thing I didn't bring was privilege. And you proved, without prompting, how your team responds to someone who doesn't look the part. Daniel shook his head. We didn't know. We couldn't have known. You didn't need to know, Maya snapped. That's the point. Sophia stepped beside her. I recognized the name when she checked in. I saw the override clearance. I knew who she was. But I didn't speak up. Not right away. I'm sorry. Maya turned to her. You did more than anyone else in this lobby. You told the truth. You stood up. And now you'll be promoted to guest services director, effective today. The guests clapped again. Slower this time. Not for show. For justice. Jessica spoke, her voice trembling. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't know what to do. Maya regarded her carefully. You had a choice, Jessica. You made it when you pressed that intercom. When you grabbed my arm, when you laughed. Then Jessica cracked. It was Richard. He told us how to deal with people who didn't match our top-tier guests. He said we were protecting the brand image. I thought it was normal. Richard's head whipped around. That's a lie. Maya raised her hand. No, it's not a lie. It's a confession. And we will document it. Her assistant's voice returned. We've logged the admission. This will be escalated to compliance and legal. The guests nodded in approval. Daniel stepped forward weakly. What happens to us now? You'll receive formal termination notice. Your names will be flagged across Sterling's hiring network. You're banned from future employment with any of our properties. And if we discover prior misconduct covered up under your supervision, further action will follow. Richard stared at her, realizing he had underestimated the wrong person. All this because you wanted to prove a point? No, Maya said coldly. All this because I'm tired of people like you deciding who deserves respect based on appearances. Emma raised her voice from the crowd. They tried to erase her, and now she's rewriting the rules. Maya turned to Sophia. Reset the check-in system. Suspend pending reservations flagged under Richard's staff ID. We'll reach out to affected guests and offer compensation. Sophia nodded, hands steady now. Maya addressed the guests. If any of you experience mistreatment at this property, our team will be stationed in the lobby. We'll open direct lines for complaints, and we will respond. No form letters, no PR fluff, just answers. The room buzzed with clarity now. Guests murmured in agreement. One elderly man tipped his hat. Thank you for not walking away. Maya nodded gently. I've walked away too many times. Not anymore. She turned back to Richard, Jessica, and Daniel. You're dismissed. Your belongings will be sent to you. Security will escort you out. You are not to speak to or approach any guests. Sophia looked at her. Should I notify security? No, Maya replied. Let them walk through the lobby. Let every guest see the consequence of unchecked behavior. As the three former employees moved through that lobby under the weight of their own disgrace, no one stopped them. No one offered sympathy. Only the quiet murmur of accountability followed them out. And once the doors closed, Maya turned back to her guests and her staff. Not with relief, but with resolve. This wasn't justice, she said. This was a beginning. Reform starts now. And with those words, Sterling Crown Hotel stopped being just a name carved in stone. It became the place where everything changed. 3 months later, the Sterling Crown Hotel looked different. Not in the architecture, not in the chandeliers or the marble floors, but in the way people moved through it, the way they were seen. A framed portrait of Maya now hung near the check-in desk, not for vanity, but for accountability. Beneath it, a plaque read, "This space belongs to every guest, no exceptions." Behind the desk stood Sophia Martinez, now permanently appointed general manager. Not just because of her courage that day, but because she redefined what leadership looked like. The reform Maya implemented rippled far beyond Portland. Sterling Crown Hotel Group launched a sweeping initiative, auditing all 15 of its properties. Dozens of previously ignored complaints resurfaced. New training protocols were enforced company-wide. Each hotel adopted equity compliance panels, anonymous feedback systems, and zero-tolerance enforcement, with real accountability. The guests who witnessed the incident that day received personal letters, not from PR interns, but from Maya herself. You stood when others looked away, one letter read. That matters. Emma and Marcus, whose recordings had sparked national coverage, were invited to speak at Sterling's Leadership Summit. They emphasized the power of real-time accountability. We didn't set out to expose anything, Marcus said. We just refused to put our phones down. But even as the company transformed, the past refused to stay buried. 1 week after the incident, Maya received a message from a former hotel manager in Seattle, a man who had worked under Richard years before. His voice low with guilt, he confessed something that cast everything in a darker light. Richard wasn't just following his own bias, he said. There was a quiet directive from regional leadership. They wanted certain guests treated as non-priority if they didn't match the profile. It wasn't on paper, but we all knew. Maya didn't respond with anger. She thanked him for the truth and passed the statement to her legal team. That single admission revealed the final layer. The Sterling Crown scandal had never been about one man abusing power. It was about a system that had quietly enabled it. As news of the confession spread, former employees from other properties began to speak up. An internal task force was formed. Several wrongfully dismissed staff were reinstated, others received settlements. Maya made sure no one was hired or fired again without a paper trail, and every new manager went through direct accountability orientation. It takes more than policies to rebuild trust, she told her board. It takes proof that silence won't be rewarded, and that telling the truth won't cost you your job. Maya's legacy shifted. Once known as a discreet entrepreneur who built an empire through grit, she was now celebrated as a reformer. Not because she sought the spotlight, but because she stepped into it to make change permanent. She launched a new division, Sterling Forward, a diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative focused not on slogans but on measurable outcomes. Under its first act, Sophia Martinez was named National Advisor for Frontline Guest Experience. And at the inaugural summit, Maya said the words that guests, staff, and survivors of silent discrimination across the country would never forget. Hospitality doesn't begin with the smile you give, it begins with the respect you assume. The audience rose to their feet, not because a CEO had spoken, but because a woman once pushed toward the exit had turned around and opened the door for everyone else. So let me ask you something. If you had been in that lobby that day, what would you have done? Would you have raised your phone, stepped forward, formed that circle of protection? Or would you have looked away, convinced it wasn't your place to get involved? I hope you never have to answer that question, but if you do, I hope you remember Maya Chen. Standing in a lobby she owned, dressed in clothes that made people assume she didn't belong, refusing to be erased. Because the truth is, this story isn't really about a hotel. It's about every space where someone has been told, through words or silence, that they don't belong. It's about the moments when we choose to look away, or to look closer, and it's about what happens when one person decides that enough is enough. So, before you go, do me one favor. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you that your voice matters, share it. Subscribe. Leave a comment with your city. Because stories like this don't spread through algorithms, they spread through people who refuse to stay silent. And that starts with you. Thanks for watching.